Hello and welcome to another episode of Our Own Devices. Again, we promised you that every time you come and listen to our podcast, you will be learning something new. And this time is no different. With us this time is Nisheeth Srivastava, who is the Chief Technology and Innovation Officer for India at Capgemini. Nisheeth, welcome to the show.
Thank you so much for having me, Nandu.
So we're going to talk about things I'm sure a lot of us have heard about, but maybe don't really understand, because it's a lot of it is actually evolving tech, if I can put it that way in a very laymanish way. So Nishit, if we can start, can you sort of give a primer on what is quantum technology or how should people look at quantum technology? I know it's a big thing, but how do you put it across very simply for the regular listener?
It's what's going to change our world. Quantum technologies is nothing like the rest of the computing that we know of. It, of course, means many, many things, but in a layperson's terms, I think, I could try to take a stab at that. We look at quantum technologies as a mix of quantum sensing, quantum communications, and quantum computing, right? So it's not the zeros and ones, correct? So therefore, what you can do with computing, what you can do with algorithms, goes far beyond what traditionally we have known to have achieved. Whether it be through the office applications or the very high imaging applications in let's say geospatial satellites or imaging and stuff like that. So it's a lot of things, work in progress. Many players are trying to do their own thing. On in Capgemini, we've tied up with IBM. We are the first commercial partners that they've had, other than academia and others. And we're doing our own thing, Nandu, right? So there's plenty work in quantum, but then that also means that this is across quantum computing, quantum sensing, and quantum communications. I can expand on that when you need me to expand.
But it would be right to say it is sort of a paradigm shift from how we have approached computing so far, right?
100%.
Yeah. Now you said you're doing your own thing, but with a lot of the new emerging technologies, we see that a lot of people do their own things, and then there are these different bubbles that everybody sort of comes up with. Then you have to sort of figure out how do you standardize it, how do you let them talk to each other. So have you reached that situation yet, or is it still that okay, people are developing their own bubbles?
You must remember that Capgemini is quite possibly, and I say this with nearly 100% certainty, the only organization in the world with a very rich mix of what we call, IT, OT, and ET, information technology, engineering technology, and operations technology. When you have that capability, your ability to play with technology surmounts, pretty much every impediment that may come your way. With the recent acquisition of a French, it was a multi-billion euro acquisition a couple of years ago called Altron. Our engineering capabilities know no bounds. Okay, so part of that acquisition was an entity called Cambridge Consulting. Okay, and a few others, right? And they, in that world, in UK, in Cambridge, and Portugal, right? We are doing some spectacular work, and this is not just in the labs, Nadu. This is actually real work we are winning in consortia with our clients and academia partners. Okay, working with the EU, working with Fraunhofer Institute, working with actually the clients I can't name, but in aerospace and defense and and life sciences, I shouldn't forget that. We're already working on a bunch of things that confound imagination. One of them is, as you may have heard possibly, is bringing an entire data center into a vial as a
Yeah.
DNA. So we're doing plenty of things, right from computational fluid dynamics to gene and cell therapy to drug discovery to plenty other things. Nandu. Is it in a bubble? If what you imply by asking me that is whether these things will remain in the labs and not really see applications in the live environment, that is true. The infrastructure doesn't exist today. But it's advancing faster than we thought. And I think, what we had assumed or forecasted might take 5, 6 years is possibly going to be upon us within a matter of 2 to 3 years, specifically in areas like cybersecurity.
I also wanted to ask you, like, is it possible for you to collaborate with another company which has maybe, had a different set of advancements in the same space, but is not in your same space? So if you guys want to collaborate, will these technologies talk to each other? Because, like, maybe it's sort of, been developed ground up, right?
In spirit, the answer is yes. I also mentioned in the example that I gave you where we uh, won a very, very large bid. This is a multi-million euro bid. Um, it's a consortium. It's with Airbus and a few other partners in the consortium developing something, and we're leading that project. Okay, for the European Union. What that what I'm trying to tell you is that everybody has an approach. Everybody has their own stack. We make it work. We're the global systems integrator. We've got the capability across the spectrum, right? Um, so yeah, it's very real right now. We're working in with partners, okay, in developing things, and more the merrier. I mean, there's plenty of things that we haven't been able to crack. Maybe the partners will get us there.
If you talk about these new quantum technologies, are they being used in new areas, or are they being used to sort of expedite? You spoke about drug discovery, and I remember a conversation I had recently with an Indian entrepreneur who's working in the US to sort of use AI to sort of at least negate the paths that you don't need to take. But otherwise they would manually do every A/B testing kind of thing, and then say that, okay, these are the three things that work. But the journey to get there is maybe doing 1,000 things wrong. Now, can AI sort of help you negate a lot of the paths that don't need to take? So again, are you working in expediting a lot of processes because you have computing which is much more powerful than before, or is this kind of computing used primarily in new technology, like we're talking about the metaverse, for instance, or Web3? How are you seeing that being rolled out or being used?
I wish there was a simple answer because it's really, and quantum doesn't permit you to say a zero or a one, right? This is the time of entanglement, right? Quantum entanglement. And therefore,
So you don't have a binary answer to anything.
there is no binary answer here because really, in quantum entanglement, I mean, if you have two, well, it's in pairs, right? And wouldn't know the state of one or the other unless you've started the measurement. So you don't know uh, the state of any of these particles. Now, what that really implies, and the simpler answer to your question is, it's all of the above. Okay, can a technology be brought in only for some future imaginary technology? No, of course not. Let's look. We have hypercomputers, right? Massive data centers guzzling energy, warming the climate, uh, putting a lot of stress on precious metals. The whole thing, right? And taking, in some cases, right, when the algorithms run for not hours but months, okay, in multi-layered, let's say GPT-3 scenario, you know, quantum can only help you advance those much faster. Okay, so the application is in the now. Okay, very, very real, very, very now. Now, what you did not talk about is threat management, right? Because if we don't raise our guards now, there will be rogue traders, and it will happen. They will hack into very sensitive systems before you know it. You have to implement now. There is no choice, right? As the SaaS app, so quantum computing is also on a platform now, right? So you've got the very large players who will release quantum computing to you, the ability to an academia. And what's to say that a researcher doesn't have, we've got plenty of examples. I'm not going to go there. That's a geopolitical risk. But look, a rogue trader can do things which have been unimaginable before, right? So it's very much in the now. That's what makes it relevant. And of course, as you go down that route, you will also find that newer vistas open up because up until now it weren't possible. I can illustrate with very scientific examples, but also the more, let's say, the listeners might enjoy that better, right? Where concerts happen, your favorite star, right? Millions want to get there. There is not enough computing power in all the servers in the world to manage interactions. Just standing there and jumping, that's one thing. You want to interact, you don't have the computing power. You want to get there, metaverse or not, doesn't matter. Quantum computing will be the way to go. So present and the future scenarios will emerge out of these situations.
So, as someone who speaks to maybe a lot of companies around around the world on the possibilities, do you think that companies are actually opening up to the opportunity here?
100%. 100%. Many of them will be toying with the. We're still on quantum technologies right now, right?
Yes, yes, yes,
Yeah.
absolutely.
Oh yeah. Oh yeah. Oh certainly. They look. There may be confusion on where to start, right?
Yeah.
And therefore, corporations need help. So this very large aerospace company, for example, right? They've been toying with this for 5 years, better part of 5 years, in fact. So it's not really new. It's not yesterday. The serious guys have been at it, right? But for the larger mass, right? They need support even with assessment of where quantum technology is imminent in the world, where it begins to make sense, and where they should make an entrance now if they want to retain any semblance of competitive lead over the others. Because people are getting in, especially the high tech engineering, driven companies, right? So um, I mean, different stages of maturity. For the most of them, they will need assistance. And those like us, we have very deep consulting ability across the value chain in helping our clients just get onto the bandwagon, to understand and assess what might be meaningful for them and how much it might cost them, if at all.
We are at a time where I guess there are a lot of new technologies emerging. There are a lot of new opportunities emerging. The pandemic has also opened up, new kinds of avenues because of, heightened demand, and maybe we are coming down that curve right now. So, are you seeing enough? How do I put it? Are, are companies really taking the risk with innovation now? Like, we had this very interesting conversation a few weeks back on opinion-led decision to data-led decisions, right? So are people taking the risk of maybe, going after a hunch and then innovating on top of it, using the new tech that is available?
Okay, so we've come through a very tumultuous phase, and it's changed everything we knew. It may not have changed prejudicial nature, right, which you can never deal with, even notwithstanding such a disruption that happened a couple of years ago. What I can tell you is that the economic cycle may define, priorities. It may change and shift priorities. Nobody would have imagined the geopolitical, situation that we're in right now. Energy costs are spiraling. People are needing to work 3 jobs just to manage 10 percentage points inflation increase. They've never seen 16% inflation in the UK. I mean now it's
Yeah.
abated a little bit. Look, and therefore there is a need to innovate. The more the pressure, the more the need for innovation. I agree that the fanciful things, right? Can I do branch banking in the metaverse? Now, people may have toyed with it. Right now, maybe you want to take a step back and think about how you can do other things, very, very smart things, in the same verse. So priorities shift, innovation will only intensify. Dollars being spent on unnecessarily, imaginative stuff, which are maybe not backed by commercial, um, or the business, the business heads approval, those will take a bit of a backseat, but I don't think that's going to last very long. It's a very forceful force. Movement right now. And I see that the numbers of people who talk to us on innovation has only grown up.
Is it innovation for the sake of innovation, or innovation that will actually change lives on the ground, right? Like, what technology I think is supposed to do is create that impact. Are you having those kind of conversations? Because, like, innovation that is scalable, has a go-to business model, and is actually going to impact people's lives or businesses.
It has to be only that. Innovation for innovation's sake is a good playground for for businesses, just to develop a character of, innovation and a culture of innovation within their organizations. And it's a necessary activity, but they never hit the real world. The real world is where innovation is making meaningful impact in the business. Now, whether that technology is blockchain or digital twinning or leveraging 5G for something or whatever, is a choice of and the impact of that technology. I mean, how can you stop innovating? I don't. It's like water, Nandu. It will not stop. It will continue, and innovation is intensifying, like I said, and not for innovation's sake, but there's a need, a dire need. You slept last night, thousand other disruptions happened. You got to wake up and run.
So how do you make these kind of innovations sustainable and for the long run?
I have to be. I have to ask you for more clarity. When you say sustainable, it's in carbon emission terms, or are you talking about scale and
Scale
repetitive?
business, like sustainability from a business perspective also. How do you make it sustainable? How do you think about innovation? Like often when you're talking about innovation in the tech space, that itself you know uh, is maybe a long term thing. You drain a lot of money into it, and then how do you sort of make it see become profitable, become sustainable, you know um, and something that sustains itself.
Without naming this client, one of the world's largest airports, you can imagine the disruption they went through, right?
Yeah,
It's extraordinary. Um, they're plagued with things like baggage, which was a bit of a joke, but also airside, right? The amount of space that the wagons and package carts and those things consume gets into the space which is commercializable in more ways than just getting an aircraft in to you know be serviced from. When you innovate with that kind of a customer on how to manage their space better using not just systems but also technologies, roving eye, artificial intelligence, planning, forecasting, etc., you're actually enhancing the business in a way that they have never attempted is one thing, and that's just on the air side. The outside of the terminal has plenty other mechanisms to enhance revenue. You need to innovate. It's not a technology game just by implementing some ERP system or some it is business innovation which you bring in, and that in turn creates new business channels for such clients. I just took one example. I can take examples of OEMs in an era of supply chain, let's just say complete choking of that,
yeah,
right? What they've had to do is extraordinary. I mean, new businesses have emerged. 80% of the people today, Nandu, before they buy their car, have already made up their minds online. You
yeah,
can't ignore.
absolutely.
And you can't just have a web page. There's plenty other things that are going on. So consumer behavior is what it is, and AI does its job. Innovation is there everywhere.
I have one last question, which maybe I wouldn't have asked a couple of years back. When you're talking to companies and when you're planning an innovation, when you're planning, for something for business growth, maybe a force majeure event is not something that you would have really thought about. But in the past years, I'm sure that disruption, the possibility of another disruption hitting us is something which is not just there at the back of the mind, but it's maybe something that's really coming into your calculations also now, right? Especially you spoke about an airport like Dubai or Schiphol, which handles thousands of planes maybe on a day, it's completely shut for months, and it's unimaginable. But and is this something that you can actually add into your mathematical formulas and Excel sheets to have that one disruption? How do you factor that in? Is that really a conversation that is also happening with a lot of the big companies, and especially because you're talking about billions of dollars at stake with a lot of the new innovations that you're planning?
I will take some time to respond. Look, when I look at disruption, and you just said disruption, right? Uh, disruptions come from many different sources. The last one was biological or bioengineered. We don't know, but it was biological. The one previous that I lived through during my startup years was the Lehman Brothers collapse of
Yeah,
2008. The one before that, which I lived through, again as a startup guy, was the dot com bubble crash.
of
They were
2000.
up to yeah, I've lost the shirt off my back 20 times. Look, I'm watching out. Okay, but look, there are different dynamics. The next one, we have no idea. Okay, what behavior? Um, we have pronouncements being made which are very, very fatalistic, actually, right? The N bomb and stuff like that. And one wonders, right, where the next one might come from. And therefore, system thinking is the only way to look at it from a perspective. But then dealing with an enterprise architecture, a business architecture as a set of containers is the only way to loosely couple and restrict the impact of innovation on a part of the business. Easier said than done. So let's say what hurt Capgemini very, very hard, and actually most of us in our respective businesses. The moment we had work from home, right, move lock, stock, and barrel, we recognized that we don't have enough laptops. Why don't we have laptops? Because there's not enough manufacturing capacity with the raw materials that existed, number one, but then that ran out. So where do you get the materials in, right? It's impossible to forecast those things or to stock up adequately. It's never impossible. What you can do is mitigate the risk of such supply chokes, correct? In different ways, right? I mean, not since my childhood when Maruti car book would have taken 2 years to get delivered. To today, when you book a car, it still takes 6 months in many cases. I
Six
mean,
to 7 months. Yes, absolutely.
it's a strange time. Unless and until you have looked at it from a sustainable product design perspective and right from the start, unless and until you've got procurement, not as an entity, your own function, by the way. And I was sitting with the CPOs, Chief Procurement Officers of nearly 50 corporations just week before last, across entities. They're hurting. The business is not the business needs to partner with them. There is a need, right? They're being asked to deal with inflation. They're being asked to deal with suppliers who are asking for payments in advance or early payment terms and stuff like that. The supply chain is what it is, and there's still a supplier management function. No, they're a partner. They better be a partner. Change your thinking, system thinking, right? And I know I may not have answered the question very, very specifically because it's just too wide, but for the range of disruptions that one can envisage, right, you have to loosely couple different functions and deal with each of them, okay, separately, individually, with very, very deep understanding of the dynamics in each. Um, and that could change from an OEM to a consumer products manufacturing organization to a pharmaceutical one, right? So back to the first question, the best of pharmaceutical companies are able to launch what maximum 2 drugs in a year. Okay, how can we change that? Um, do I need to? Maybe I need to. Maybe there's a need. This is life sciences. There's plenty, diseases, all of those things that need urgent intervention. But yeah, your only solution here is to do very, very cool things with technology, okay, in the digital verse. And that is what is going to de-risk you. There is no other way. So yeah, system thinking, loosely coupled, containerized architecture of a business organization, and dealing with each of them continuously. Because the moment any one of them, okay, starts corroding, right, you've had it. So there's no other way. Data is the oil. You need to get onto that and grease the enterprise. That's the only way I can respond to your question.
I'm sure our listeners have a lot of takeaways from this conversation because I'm sure this makes you think differently about how you need to innovate, like, when you need to innovate, like, how do you roll it out? What are the factors that you keep in mind? So thanks a lot for being on the show, Nisheeth. It was a pleasure having you here.
Pleasure is mine.
Thank you. Thank you. It was a pleasure talking to you. You were listening to Our
Likewise.
Own Devices. We'll be back again next week with another guest. Till then, goodbye.